Okay, everyone. I think we are finally sort of live here. We are on a different stream than we said. I'll tell people to move. Welcome to Deprogrammed on Unsafe Space. My name is Carter Laren. I am joined, as always, by the bad Mama Jamma, Keri Smith. Keri, take it away. We can't hear you. Hold on.
Oh,
There we
no.
go. Take it away.
Hi. Of course, we had to have tech problems again. And on a day when we have so many people waiting in the chat, that sucks. I think, are you going to give them the new link?
I'm going to do that. I'm going to mute myself while I do that. Why don't can you do introductions and start. I'm going to go tell people what's going on online.
Okay, cool.
All right. Yeah. Follow us on Unsafe Space on YouTube.
So we're here today with comedian Josh Denny. Josh, you might need to unmute yourself if you haven't already. Josh,
I'm unmuted. I know what's up. I'm in.
Thanks so much for your patience. This isn't haven't already. Josh,
I'm unmuted.
Something bad's happening. I can hear myself echoing. We're having issues, Carter.
No, I fixed that. Sorry, that was me.
Okay, that was you. So I was just going to say the last time we had tech issues this bad is when we had another comedian on. We had Pat Dixon on, and he was also very patient. And anyway, I really appreciate it. Yeah. So Carter wrote this great intro for you. Should I read that?
Sure.
Okay, let's see.
Don't blame me for this.
Josh Denny is a comic and former host of Food Network's Ginormous Food. Josh was the victim of a Twitter outrage mob last year over a so-called racist tweet, which resulted in the real-world consequences of job loss and social ostracization. You can follow him on Twitter at Josh Denny. I wanted to say personally, I am so excited for you to be here because I used to work in comedy, and I love talking to comedians. And even though I think it's what you've been going through since you were targeted by this mob is horrible. I also think it shows a really good strength of character on your part. So I kind of admire you from afar.
Yeah, I mean, that's nice of you to say. I appreciate that. But it's one of those things, there's really not a lot you can do about it. I mean, one of the things you could do for sure is just create some plethora of content and try to bury it with other press and other things like that. But, ultimately, it's one of those things where I go back and forth on, caring about how available that is for people to see, because, it's not like I got Me Too'd. It's not like that there was something that came out that was based in reality that is like, oh no, that's a bad look for me. It's really just like a take of mine that was interpreted poorly and maybe delivered poorly. People have their opinions about that. But the funny thing is, the thing I think that's so interesting about it is that it's really stood the test of time. Like if you go back and read that tweet and all the subsequent tweets that I put out that day, and as we're coming up on a year now, it was like May 19th of last year. It's almost like Nostradamus level prediction of everything that has happened in terms of the media's attempt to sort of demonize what it is to be a straight white male. And you don't have to look any further than the current Democratic primary shuffling to see how much of a scarlet letter it is to be a straight white guy, or particularly an old one, right?
Yeah. Can you just tell people what the tweet was about for people who didn't?
I actually have the tweet.
You have it?
Yeah, go ahead, Carter.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull it up. Dun, 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 dun. There we go. At least my tech works, YouTube. Fuck you, YouTube. My tech's fine. Yeah. So here's your offensive, horrible tweet, which makes you a bad, racist person and unemployable.
Yes. They got me Naziing.
Yeah.
As Gavin McInnes says, they caught me Naziing.
They did. They caught you Naziing. So should we read it? You want to read it? For people who are listening, not everyone is.
Yeah, so the tweet says, straight white male has become this century's N-word. It is used to offend and diminish the recipient based on assumption and bias. No difference in the usage. And so, as you can go on, you'll see a bunch of other comments of me saying, like, let me elaborate on this, which clearly did not necessarily make it better for the people that were so offended by the initial tweet. But essentially, and to give a little context, there was another mass shooting that day And when I logged in and was trying to find stories on the mass shooting, it was just like straight white males at it again. And of course, the comedian brain in my head kicks in and goes, "Isn't this how we used to just describe all black people? Didn't we just see like a crime happen on TV, and your grandparents would be like, that's just black people being black?" And so that was kind of the inspiration behind that thought of like, wow, we're literally just substituting the N-word with the phrase straight white male, and we're doing the same kind of broad brushing and generalizing in the media, and it's not helpful. If anything, it just alienates people and makes people that aren't committing mass murders or doing any of the other things that straight white men were being blamed for. It makes them feel ostracized and othered, and that's how you create white supremacists and alt-right people and white nationalists. And so in a way, I was trying to say, like, listen, guys, you're doing the thing again, and this is what's getting you what you don't want. And that completely fell on deaf ears and then pivoted. And, of course, then what people went on to do was find old racially charged jokes that I do, which is what I've always done in my career, and try to conflate the two and say, well, if you've made jokes about race in the past and you have these takes about race, you combine those two things and you are a racist. And that's everyone's favorite word on the internet now.
Right. It's really, so there's a Medium piece out about you that it just came out, right? About yes. How this controversy or whatever has followed you into as you're have been in a job search or started at a new job where you were recruited, I guess, supporting you for a while, right? And then like on the first day or the second day you were fired because of your
second day, yeah.
Wow.
Second day. So, and it's interesting because, it all happened so fast. I mean, the second day I was there. So a little color, and the article goes on to explain this, but the opportunity that arose for me to go work for this company came out of a longtime friend of mine and a mentor of mine throughout my professional career. And he had started working for this company a little over a year ago and had kind of been talking to me all along, like saying, hey, at the time he took the job, my show had just ended at Food Network. And so he said, if you're looking to get back into the corporate world and the business world, I might have something for you. And so we've kind of we had been talking for about a year. And then over the last, since I want to say February, we've really been focused on like getting that locked in. And I met with the president of the company and talked about all the different things that I could bring to the table there, and kind of, oh, that's not good. I went to the stream and now it's airing on my thing. So where was I? Yeah. So we had really good conversations. It felt like a really great fit culturally for me to go join this company, and they liked it so much, or they liked the fit so much that they were creating a new position for me. And then 2 days in, like the second day I was there, I got called into the office with the HR person, and she basically just had my Twitter and all my social media stuff pulled up on a screen and was like, is this you? Which I thought was kind of a dumb question, because it's like, yeah, it's definitely me. Like, you can see clear as day, like, that's my picture. This is my face. Like, what a dumb question, but sure. And then she literally started going through some of my jokes and was like, well, like, did you say this? And I go, well, yeah, but it's comedy. Like, obviously I'm being sarcastic. And some of them were incredibly benign too. And I was just like, yeah, of course but this is all comedy. This is a comedic persona. And she, at the moment, was just like, okay, well, we're going to investigate this. We're going to have to put you on leave. So leave all your company equipment behind, and we'll let you know what we come up with by the end of the day. And then, of course, the next phone call I got from them was like, yep, you're fired. And I just said, on what grounds?
Yeah.
And they said, well, we're just exercising our at-will options. So naturally, and that's what a lot of people have said. They go, well, yeah, they have the at-will right to decide who they're going to bring in, and et cetera, et cetera. But the question is, through the extensive background check and everything that I went through, how did I get a job in the first place? Like, how did it go through all of those processes? And how do you get brought on board to a company? And then all of that stuff had been vetted. All of that stuff had been looked at. And then all of a sudden on day 2, somebody has a problem. So my belief is that it actually had far more to do with my political leanings. When you go into my Twitter, you go into my social media, not only do you see jokes and comedy, but you also see a lot of my discussion about politics and my point of view of the world. I think that's actually what someone got offended by, and I think that's actually what drove the decision to terminate me. And that's obviously what our case will look to prove in court.
Go ahead, Carter.
No, I'm just sighing because I think I told everyone the new URL, so I'm kind of back paying attention.
Welcome back. Welcome back. We've just been laying the groundwork for what happened to Josh in the tweet.
No, I know, and actually, so Josh, just to clarify, because there's people, so we have a bunch of trolls in chat. Hi, trolls. You're welcome to be here.
Hey, guys.
But they're like, oh, you were fired from the Food Network. That's not my understanding. Actually, you had
No.
The show was over before any of this craziness happened.
Yeah, so you have, when you sign a contract for a TV show, most people don't realize this, but Keri, you know this because you worked in production and sold shows. Before the show gets picked up, you sign what's called a futures contract. So essentially you agree to terms over 4 to 5 years, and pay is discussed and everything else, and then they have these contract terms. So a contract term for a show like mine is 30 episodes or 12 months, whatever happens faster, right? And so once we kind of hit our 1-year contract term, they just didn't make the option to pick the show back up again. So our 1-year contract term happened in October of 2018, and they just didn't pick up our 2nd-year term. Long before any of this stuff happened. So to say like I was... Yes, long before I had switched over to the alt-right and became the new Milo Yiannopoulos. Yes.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you know my background, but this show and for the people that you brought with you.
Yeah.
Those people. My background is that, I worked in comedy as a manager and a producer, but I was what I would call and do call an SJW for about 20 years. I was in entertainment because not so much because I wanted to work in entertainment, but because I wanted to push my belief system. And I thought comedy was a great way to do that. And it is, because you're getting people to laugh while you're also maybe bringing them over to a certain point of view, whatever your point of view is. And so I was in that belief system for about 20 years. And so I'm in just the past couple of years started having a huge transformation in belief. And the show is kind of about going back and untangling what that ideology was, what it was that I thought it was and what it actually was. Would you say that you've had a similar kind of awakening or transition in the past couple of years? Or have you always been a wrong thinker?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think that's a great question, because I could tell you in 2008, I started doing comedy in 2007. 2008 was Obama's first term, right? And I would say at that time, if you would have asked me, I definitely would say I identified as extremely liberal, right? All about free speech, all about marriage equality, all about legalization of drugs, that type of thing, like extremely on the liberal side of things. And it's kind of amazing how when your belief system doesn't change, but the world around you kind of changes, you find yourself getting pushed. And I started listening to different people on the internet and being like, wow, we agree with the same things. And I actually found a lot of the right-wing people, and they're called right-wing people now. I don't even think that they are, but a lot of the right-wing people that I found, I was introduced through Joe Rogan's podcast. And on his podcast, a lot of the dialogue is just, let's talk about things we think we can agree on and things that we agree on about the world. And I found out that a lot of people I agreed with were people that were in this intellectual dark web or considered part of the right now. And you start to look into it and you go, wow, this is apparently what I used to think was an extremely liberal way of looking at the world is now considered conservative. And in a way, by being kind of pushed over into that side, I started to listen to more and more of my conservative friends. And I feel like a lot of my views became more conservative over time.
Interesting. Yeah, I think both things are happening. I think that my views have started to change, but also, I mean, I'm still liberal, and I what's happened around me is that the left, the mainstream left, has become what I call, this authoritarian type of illiberal identitarian belief system. It's not liberal, although a lot of people call it that. And so on the one hand, you've got that shift on the left towards the alt left or the SJW left or what have you. And then at the same time, like you said, I think it sort of that shift itself started to wake me up. So I started questioning some of the things that I had always believed to be truth. What about the comedy world? So from my perspective, the comedy world has undergone a bit of a shift and a change in terms of what's popular or what types of shows were being sold. I worked on a show that I consider to be one of the first SJW late night shows And then after that show, there were a lot of them. It seemed to be the trend that, we got picked up at a time when they were looking for stuff like that. And I think they're still in the middle of that trend. Would you say that's accurate or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, and you made me think of the Carlin quote where he says political correctness is America's newest form of intolerance and is especially pernicious because it comes disguised as tolerance, right? So a lot of this stuff is changing in the name of we have to be better. And the thing that's funny to me is that the pursuit of that actually comes with a lot of behavior that isn't better. It's just different. We've just shifted the pendulum. And one of the things that a lot of my friends in the industry, because there were a lot of people that when that Twitter thing happened, a lot of comedians came to my aid and said, hey man, we know what you were trying to say. Get off the internet, unplug from your phone, just get away from it. It's crazy. It'll peter out. And sure enough, 2 or 3 days later, the Roseanne thing happened and my thing went into obscurity. So thanks, Roseanne, for taking the bullet on that one. She was like, hold my beer. Of course. So the crazy thing about how the industry is changing is that there is this idea of we want to create more tolerant and more diverse and inclusive content. But in doing that, none of it's happening organically. It's just completely manufactured. It's completely curated. And I mean, I've gone into meetings, and this was even 6 months before the Food Network show ended. So when we knew we got picked up for a second season, I started trying to go out and pitch other shows. And there were literally, when I was trying to pitch scripted stuff, I literally sat across from executives who said, oh, we're just not buying anything from white men right now. And I thought, are you fucking crazy? As a guy who has hired people for jobs for the last 12, 13 years of my life, you can't just tell someone we're not buying things from your people. But the industry has a complete, they don't give a fuck. They're just straightforward. Yep, no, we're not buying any heterosexual white male content. That's just not what we're doing right now. And so as a dude who has no choice but to make, and by the way, it's just the idea that oh man, let me scrap my show that's entirely about me being a straight white dude. That's not what my show was at all, but it's just the idea. So that's my point, is this pursuit of diversity and inclusion is